Log entry, August 12, 1891. Wind easterly, moderate. Sky clear, crew calm, but tonight, they knocked again. Imagine the vast, indifferent expanse of the mid-Atlantic. A canvas of deep blue stretching to an unbroken horizon. The date is August 20th, 1924. The sun is a merciless hammer in a sky of polished brass. For the crew of the British cargo steamer SS Thornton Vale, it is another day of routine, of the steady, comforting thrum of the engine and the endless roll of the sea. Time itself seems to slow out here, measured only by the changing of the watch and the slow crawl of the sun. Then, a voice from the crow's nest shatters the monotony. A vessel, sighted off the port bow, adrift. Captain Sorenson, a Dane whose temperament was as steady and unyielding as the sea he sailed, raised his binoculars. What he saw was wrong, not a disaster, but something far more unsettling. The ship, a handsome, three-masted schooner, sat perfectly still on the placid water. Her lines were clean, her hull painted a deep, lustrous black that seemed to drink the sunlight. There were no sails set, yet she did not wallow. There was no smoke from a galley chimney, no signal flags, no sign of life whatsoever. As the Thornton Vale altered its course, closing the distance, the name on her stern became clear, picked out in elegant, curling script that seemed to mock the silence. The Silent Siren. Sorenson lowered his binoculars, a knot of unease tightening in his stomach. The ship was too clean, too perfect. The lifeboats were all present, resting securely in their davits, their canvas covers neatly tied. The ropes on her deck were coiled with a sailor's obsessive precision. There was no charring of a fire, no splintered wood of a storm, no sign of violence or struggle. And, as his boarding party would soon discover, with a growing sense of dread, there was not a single living soul on board. This is how the story began. A maritime mystery that would, for the handful of people who knew its full terrifying scope, make the celebrated case of the Mary Celeste seem like a child's puzzle. It was a tale that began not with a disappearance but with an arrival. But before we unseal the chilling final records of the Silent Siren's last captain and descend into the madness that consumed his vessel, a request. If you're drawn to the world's dark corners and unsolved mysteries, subscribe to our channel. We are new, and our mission is to bring you the most enigmatic and intriguing stories from across the globe every single day. Click that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss a single journey into the unknown. The first men over the rail of the Silent Siren were Captain Sorenson himself and his young, sharp-eyed first mate, a man named Gray. The moment their boots hit the deck, a profound silence enveloped them, deeper than the mere absence of a crew. It was a heavy, watchful quiet. The air was still and thick, with the scent of salt, tar, and something else, something faint and cloyingly sweet, like a funeral parlor full of wilting lilies. Check the cabins. Mr. Gray, with me to the bridge, Sorenson ordered, his voice sounding unnaturally loud. The ship was a ghost of perfect order. In the galley, a half-peeled potato sat on a cutting board, next to a knife. A pot of coffee rested on the cold stove. In the crew's quarters, bunks were neatly made, and sea chests were closed. It was as if the crew had simply vanished in the middle of a breath. In the captain's cabin they found it. The ship's logbook. It lay open. On the desk, a leather-bound volume whose cover was stiff and warped with sea salt. The edges of the book were charred black, as if someone had tried to burn it before thinking better of it. The ink on the open page was faded and blurred by the relentless humidity, the words bleeding into the coarse paper. Yet it was legible, a final, horrifying testament left in a floating mausoleum. Sorenson and Gray began to read, their lantern casting dancing shadows on the cabin walls as the Thornton Vale's gentle rocking was transmitted to the ghost ship. The first pages were entirely mundane, a dry litany of life at sea, weather reports, course corrections, notes on provisions. Captain Henry Crow, the log's author, complained about a sticking anchor winch and the questionable quality of the salted beef from the last port. Pop tea. It was the familiar, grounding rhythm of a merchant vessel at work. Then the rhythm broke. The entries began to change, the tone shifting from banal to bewildered. Captain Crow's handwriting, at first the firm, confident script of an experienced mariner, grew progressively unsteady, the letters becoming jagged and tense, as if carved into the page by a trembling hand. The sentences became shorter, more breathless, fragments of a mind being systematically dismantled by an unseen force. August 13th. Andy came to me this morning, his eyes wide. He swore he heard singing during his watch last night. A woman, he says. A high, clear voice with no words. I told him it was the wind in the rigging, that the sea plays tricks on a tired mind. He's a good lad, but prone to fancy. Yet, he wouldn't be placated. He said. It wasn't the wind. It came from all around, he claimed, even from beneath the hull. He looked at me not with fear, but with a kind of rapt attention, as if he were still listening for it. I dismissed him with a caution against spreading fanciful tales among the crew. August 14th. Engineer McNeil is gone. His bunk was not slept in. We formed a search party at dawn. We found the main hatch to the engine room open, swinging gently with the ship's roll, its iron groaning like a sigh. The air that rose from the depths was cold. McNeil was a proud, fastidious man who revered his engine. His tools were laid out on a clean piece of canvas beside the great piston housing, arranged as if for a delicate surgery. He would never have left them like that. We searched for hours, our calls of his name echoing in the humid, metallic labyrinth of the ship's belly, answered only by the drip of condensation. The sea outside is a sheet of glass. He couldn't have just fallen. I fear he went looking for the source of that sound. Did he find it? Or did it find him? August 15th. The crying started last night. A soft, desolate weeping that seems to come from the very timbers of the ship, from the cargo hold deep below. I am the only one who admits to hearing it. I see the other men straining to listen, their heads cocked at odd angles during the long, silent meals. But they say nothing. The fear is a contagion, now spreading through the quiet. Thomas, the youngest of us, a boy of barely 17, came to my cabin, shaking. He told me someone had come into his quarters during the night. He felt a presence standing over his bunk, a chilling cold that settled on his chest. He showed me the door, the heavy bolt still shut. Home, locked from the inside. He asked me, his voice a whisper, "Captain, what wants us?" August 16th. We are lost. I have been a master of sail and steam for 30 years, and I have never been lost. But we are now. The compass is useless. The needle, spinning in a frantic, ceaseless dance. It points nowhere. I took a sextant reading at dusk, my hand steady on the instrument, my calculations precise. The result was impossible. The stars are wrong. Polaris is gone. The constellations I have known my entire life have been replaced by cold alien patterns. The charts are now just paper. The sea itself feels different. The currents pulling us toward a destination that is not on any map made by man. We are no longer sailing. We are being towed by an invisible line. Aboard the Silent Siren, the afternoon sun began to dip, painting the sea in hues of orange and blood. Captain Sorenson closed the logbook, his knuckles white. "This is madness," he breathed, the words hanging in the still air. Gray, who had been methodically searching the small cabin, suddenly froze. He was kneeling, his face inches from the floorboards near the captain's desk. "Captain," he said, his voice hushed and tight, "look at this." Sorenson crouched beside him. There, preserved in a thin layer of undisturbed dust, were footprints. They were impossibly small and delicate, the perfect outline of a child's bare feet. They led from the corner of the room to the spot where the captain's chair was, and then away, vanishing near the doorway. "A cabin boy," Sorenson muttered, though he knew the ship's roster listed no children. "Their souls are caked in." "Something, sir," Gray whispered, pointing with a trembling finger. "It's not dust, it's damp sand and salt." Back in the pages of the log, the captain's narrative continued its spiral into the abyss. August 18th, I witnessed Thomas's end. We were on the quarterdeck, checking the lashings on the spare spars. He suddenly stopped, his head turning as if he'd heard a call. He dropped his mallet, and with a serenity that terrified me more than any scream, he walked to the rail. I shouted his name. He turned and looked back at me, and his face, dear God, his face was radiant. He was smiling. A blissful, empty smile of pure ecstasy. He wasn't fleeing from the ship. He was going to a welcoming embrace. He climbed over the rail without a moment's hesitation and dropped into the placid water below. He did not struggle. He simply sank. We were alone on that deck. I swear. On my life there was no one there. August 19th. I have barricaded myself in my cabin. I cannot bear to look at the others. The crew. They've stopped being a crew. They've fallen utterly silent. They still move about the deck, performing their duties with a zombie's mindless repetition, but they do not speak. They don't even look at each other. They just stand for hours, staring out at the water, their eyes vacant and unfocused. Sometimes I see their lips move, forming silent words to a song only they can hear. They are no longer my men. They are hollow things, puppets whose strings are pulled by that damnable music. The heart has gone out of my ship, replaced by a cold, quiet dread. August 20th. The dreams are no longer dreams, they are visits. I find myself walking on the seabed, the crushing pressure of the ocean. A mere blanket. I can breathe the cold green water. I look up and see the dark silhouette of the siren passing over me, a shadow against the distant, shimmering roof of the world. It is pulling me onward, and I do not fight, because the song is so clear down here. It is not just a sound. It is a feeling, a vibration that resonates in my bones, rearranging my very soul. She has a name, I know she does, but it is a name made of water and light and sorrow, a sound that would shatter a human tongue. Years later, in a sterile, wood-paneled office in London, the official transcript of the log was laid before a panel of experts. Dr. Larry Jackson of the Royal Maritime Institute, now an old man, adjusted his spectacles. The log is, without question, written by Captain Henry Crowe. His hand, his phrasing, it's all consistent with his records. Until the final week, what he describes is a complete psychotic breakdown, a folie à plusieurs, affecting the entire crew. But the state of the ship, Doctor, a young psychologist, countered. A crew in the grip of mass psychosis does not maintain perfect order. They do not coil ropes and make their beds. Psychosis is chaos. The Silent Siren was a monument to order. And the navigational anomalies, added a physicist, a spinning compass, stars out of place that isn't psychosis. That is a violation of the laws of nature. Dr. Jackson sighed, removing his glasses. Gentlemen, I have studied this case for 40 years. My conclusion is this: the logbook of the Silent Siren is either the most elaborate and pointless hoax ever perpetrated at sea, or it is a factual report of an event for which we have no earthly frame of reference. The most common theories were trotted out, as they always are in such cases, and each one fell apart under the strange facts of the case. Ergot poisoning couldn't explain the navigational impossibilities. A rogue wave couldn't explain the pristine condition of the ship. A suicidal cult couldn't explain the absence of any ideological paraphernalia. The mystery was a locked room, and the key was written in the final, terrifying entries of the captain's log. August 21st. They are singing. Again. All of them, my crew. They stand at the rails and sing, but with no sound, yet I hear it. The song has become the wind. The sails are taut and full, though the sea is as still as a pond. The ship cuts through the water at 10 knots. At night, the ocean shines with a cold, phosphorescent light, a black mirror reflecting the alien stars. I looked over the side an hour ago. We cast no reflection. I saw only the abyss and the stars looking back at me from its depths. August 22nd. I saw her. She was not a dream. She stood on the stern post, where the ship's lantern should be, a figure of moonlight and sea foam. She was barefoot, clad in a simple blue dress that seemed to shift and flow like the tide itself. She was whispering to me, her voice a current inside my mind, telling me that the journey was almost over. Her face was beautiful, but her mouth did not move. I am writing this down desperately, because the moment I look away from this page, the memory of her words evaporates like sea spray in the sun. August 23rd. I am leaving this journal on my desk. This is the last thing I will write, a warning. If this ship is ever found, if these words are ever read, I beg of you, do not listen for the song. Do not read my words aloud. The sound of a human voice, speaking of her, gives her an anchor in your world. She will come for the voice that calls her name, even if that name is only whispered in your mind. When the Silent Siren was finally towed into a secure port, it was treated like a crime scene. But during the transit, the impossible happened. The logbook, which Captain Sorenson had locked in his own safe aboard the Thornton Vale, vanished. And worse, far worse, his first mate, the young man named Gray, who had first found the barefoot prints, disappeared from his boarding house 2 days after making port. His landlady told the police. He had been acting strangely. He sat by his window for hours, staring at nothing, humming a strange melodic tune. His belongings were untouched. The door to his room was bolted from the inside. He was never seen again. The legend persists. Even now, sailors and fishermen in the deep Atlantic tell stories of a ghost ship that glides through the water on windless nights, her sails glowing with a faint, otherworldly light. They say modern electronics fail in her presence, that GPS systems go haywire and compasses spin like tops. Sometimes deep-sea hydrophones, listening for the songs of whales, pick up something else. An audio file that circulates in hushed corners of the internet purports to have captured it. A high, clear, wordless melody that computer analysis can neither replicate nor identify. Psychologists dismiss it all as legend tripping and audio pareidolia, the mind's desperate need to find patterns in chaos. But they cannot explain the consistency of the sightings over a century. Dozens of witnesses, from grizzled trawler captains to weekend yachtsmen, separated by decades and oceans, describe the fleeting figure they sometimes see on her deck in the exact same chilling detail: a woman in a flowing blue dress, barefoot, smiling a smile of serene, eternal welcome, a smile that never touches her eyes and never moves her lips. The final transcribed entry from the logbook is barely legible, the handwriting having devolved into a frantic, almost illegible scrawl of a man writing his last words on a sinking vessel. But the ship was not sinking, only he was. Final entry, August 24th. I am swimming. The water is so cold, but there is no fear. She is here, with me. Her song is the water. She has shown me. We were never lost. We are home. The story of the Silent Siren remains a splinter in the mind of maritime history, an event that defies every category we have for it. Was it a shared seaborne madness, an elaborate and tragic hoax, Or is it a testament to the idea that there are forces in the vast, ancient emptiness of the ocean that operate by rules we cannot begin to comprehend? What do you truly think happened to Captain Crow and his crew? Was it a poison, a psychosis, or something that came for them from the deep? Which theories seem plausible, and which fall apart under the weight of the evidence? Perhaps you have your own unique theory, a piece of the puzzle we've all missed. Leave it in the comments below. We want to hear what you think. And remember, some stories are more than just stories. They are warnings. They stay with us not because we remember them, but because, in some dark and quiet way, they remember us.